everybody. Time for the Wonder of Christmas devotion. And today's topic is Herod. When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious. Matthew 2:16. At the heart of the Christmas account of Jesus' birth lies an espionage story. Not James Bond exactly, though its antagonist, Herod, might be an earlier version of Dr. No. Of course, the biblical account reports that King Herod called for a private executive meeting with the wise men. Herod cleverly told them, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him." Matthew 2:8. The Bible tells us that the wise men did indeed find the boy Jesus, worshipped him, and gave him gifts. But they were then warned in a dream not to return to Herod as he instructed. Secretly, they returned home the back way. Herod realized he'd been outwitted by the Magi, and he was not a happy camper. He ordered the slaughter of all the boys in Bethlehem 2 years and under. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Joseph and Mary had been warned in a dream to escape, and they took the child Jesus to Egypt to avoid the cruel violence of King Herod. Wow, such dramatic suspense with the evil Herod at the heart of it. So what do we know about Dr. No? This King Herod, who tried through trickery to snuff out Jesus, this pretender king, and threat to his throne. In Shakespeare's classic play Hamlet, the Danish prince coaches a group of actors, warning them not to overact. Out Herod's Herod, pray you avoid it. He was probably referring to Christmas pageants of that time in which the role of Herod was played bombastically and flamboyantly and flourishes of overacting. Historically, though, the real Herod seems more like a conniver, cleverly plotting to gain and keep power. Herod came to power as a young man in the 40s BC. What are you doing, Bubba? He was like looking at the Christmas tree. His father was a respected general who gained influence by backing the right horses in the civil strife that consumed Palestine for decades. One of those horses was Rome, whose armies conquered Jerusalem in 63 BC, but still faced internal conflict back home. As a young governor in Galilee, Herod showed skill in putting down rebellions, but invaders from the east forced him to flee to Rome, where he made the acquaintance of a young man about his own age named Octavian, who soon took power as Augustus Caesar. It's good to have friends in high places. Octavian had Herod appointed king of Judea in 40 BC. Herod was about 25 years old when he returned to rule his homeland with the mighty support of Rome. Except it wasn't really his homeland. As influential as they were, Herod's family came from Idumea, Old Edom, across the Jordan River. Enemies often depicted Herod as a usurper, a pretender not fully Jewish. Some thought the magnificent temple he built in Jerusalem was a bribe to quiet his religious enemies. And it was a magnificent temple. It out Solomon. The building project was so massive that it was still in progress half a century after Herod died. Herod launched other building projects as well. A racetrack and theater in Jerusalem helped make it a Greek-style city. He built fortresses in the wilderness and cities on the sea. He seemed increasingly paranoid as he grew older, and not without reason. He now had a number of heirs, each one with personal ambitions. He was also getting sick, so when the Magi asked about a newborn king of the Jews, it must have set off all sorts of alarms. For decades, Herod had used violence to guard his power. What was this new threat? We see this conniving spirit in his pleasant request to the Magi to report back to him. We see his murderous intent in the order to kill the babies of Bethlehem. Herods are a bit like cockroaches. One dies and another 3 crawl out. King Herod the Great, who met with the Magi, was the first of a royal line that included others who interacted with the adult Jesus, John the Baptist, Peter, and Paul. All in all, they were an unsavory lot. While hiding out in Egypt, Joseph and Mary got word of the death of Herod the Great. Taking the throne of Judea was his son Herod Archelaus, who was just as dangerous, so the Holy Family resettled in Galilee, where Herod Antipas ruled, Matthew 2:22. Archelaus was such a terrible king that Jews and Samaritans teamed up to beg Rome to remove him. A Roman governor was appointed over Judea, replacing him. Meanwhile, Herod Antipas reigned in Galilee for several decades. This was the Herod who had John the Baptist beheaded and interviewed Jesus before his crucifixion. This family of Herods continues through the New Testament. Rome set up Herod Agrippa I, grandson of Herod the Great, as king over the territory of Antipas. Agrippa was the Herod who executed James, the brother of John, and imprisoned Peter. His son, Herod Agrippa II, was called in by a Roman governor to confer with Paul, who shared the good news of Jesus. Agrippa II famously scoffed, "Do you think that in such a short time you can persuade me to be a Christian?" Acts 26:28. What's our takeaway from this lineage of Herod kings? Perhaps during this Christmas season of delight and exuberant joy, we might be soberly reminded of this threat to the baby Jesus. We might look in awe at our God who directed as ingenious counterplot that involved wise men in the court of Herod, a vivid dream, and a secret getaway. If it weren't true, it would make a great espionage novel. Preparing for Christmas. In your devotional time, take a moment to listen to a version of the 16th century Coventry Carol. It's a haunting tune set in a minor key that captures the foreboding of Herod's plot against the baby Jesus. Herod the king, in his raging, charged he hath this day his men of might in his own sight, all young children to slay. An ominous song for sure against the backdrop of a joyful season, but maybe there's a useful lesson in it for us. Maybe we should be aware that there's always a Herod in our lives, someone who tries to snuff out our faith. The enemy is looking for every possible angle to worm into our minds and hearts to kill our relationship with God. What are those threats to your Christ life right now? Lord God, I bring to you the Herods of my life, the evils that threaten my faith. Give me your wisdom to escape from them. I need your power to overcome them. All right, I hope you guys have a blessed rest of your Monday. Keep me in prayer for my health, this pain I'm dealing with, our finances. Keep a friend of mine in prayer that's going through really severe depression and stuff. Pray for my friend Shannon and her recovery. Pray for another friend of mine that has, I think it's tomorrow, an ultrasound for great results, and that everything goes well with that. I love you guys, and God bless.